Welcome. The future of AI in game development is a topic that I have been thinking of lately, because I see a lot of potential and I believe that this could legitimately bring up a new generation of gaming. Considering that the last 10-ish years, the main focus was on immersion through graphical fidelity. It was the main driving force for game engine development, graphical improvements, and hardware/software optimizations and advancements. Given today's environment, with AI tools on the rise, all developers are seemingly jumping on the bandwagon of this new tech. I can't help but feel like I'm back in 2004 when the sequel to the industry-changing Half-Life released, and once more, fans were stunned at the new physics that let you interact with the world however you wanted. The characters felt more lifelike and relatable, and the graphical fidelity had been improved so much for the time it was released. Like many fans, I as well thought to myself, this looks and feels so real. But that was back in 2004. And since then, a race of sorts began. A race that drove manufacturers to design and build the bleeding edge of what is possible, and strive for nothing less than perfection. A race that inspired, maybe even entranced developers of the possibilities of what this new tech can bring to the table. And for us, eagerly waiting fans, this race showed us that there is still a long way to go, and a lot more to see. A quick disclaimer before we start. These are just my thoughts and opinions of where AI might be heading towards regarding game development. And I do understand that graphics are not the only thing that makes a game good, so take everything what I say with a grain of salt. I just want to put an idea out there. Alright, let's begin. The year is 2023. We have game releases every single month at this point, with new content and features provided in each title for us consumers to enjoy. But whenever I look at games released in the past 2 to 3 years, graphically, I don't really see a difference. And don't get me wrong, of course there are differences, but in my eyes, they are minor. In my opinion, I feel like the graphics of AAA games have reached about 80%, which don't get me wrong, we still have 20% left to go, but that 20% is going to be much harder to achieve than it was to get to 80. Of course, we will get there, I don't have any doubts about that. But looking at AI and how the world is reacting to it, I dare to argue that soon we will have a shift, and a new race will begin. We can already see manufacturers like Nvidia, AMD, Intel, and others investing heavily in AI acceleration and functionalities in their upcoming products/projects. And even now, through software updates, we are able to utilize our current machines to use AI, whether it's for speeding up tasks, using AI to more efficiently render scenes, develop useful plugins for our day-to-day use, or just make a funny meme to post on the internet. We can see that a future with AI is going to be inevitable. It's not that hard to figure out. Even years ago, we could see that. But with that, I present you a question. What can AI be used for regarding game development? This is what I want to discuss today. I want to go through some ideas that my friend and I have been discussing every time we meet up. At the moment of writing, the newest development we have seen regarding the implementation of AI in games have been the Google and Stanford Autonomous NPC game, and a mod from the Skyrim community implementing ChatGPT as a dynamic dialogue generator for the NPCs. Digging a little bit deeper in these two examples, you can already see the possibilities of where this could go, especially regarding RPG and MMO games. Let's see an example of what this could look like in-game. The example that I'm going to show is going to be in the context of a new player logging in for the first time into the game. And for simplicity's sake, let's say that the game is an open-world fantasy medieval RPG. Once the player logs in, he is spawned at an entrance to a town. As he approaches the gate, he is stopped by a guard who asks, "What is your business here?" And at that point, you get 4 dialogue options. Number 1, I'm just passing by. Number 2, I'm a merchant and I have goods that I want to sell. Number 3, I'm a famous adventurer from another town. Number 4, I'm a messenger and I have business with a king. Every one of these options would result in different kinds of outcomes, so let's go through them all. If you choose number 1, then the guard would check your belongings to see if you aren't carrying anything dangerous, and after he is done, he will let you go into the town. And that would be a pretty common interaction between the NPC and the player. If you choose number 2, the guard would ask for a merchant's permit to be able to sell your goods in the town. You would fail to provide the permit, the guard would not let you in because at that point you would be very suspicious, so you'd have to turn around and start your adventure elsewhere. And so you do. You head off in the other direction, not even a second thought goes through your head, but in the background, the guard's AI took a mental note of you, and he reported you to the town's law enforcement, saying that there is a man posing as a merchant. You are not in any trouble, but if you ever decide to return to that specific town, you would have to provide a merchant's permit because you have been labeled as such. And it doesn't matter if there is a different guard on duty. Now let's say that you choose number 3. The guard would look at you and would say, "So what? You're not known here." Then he would proceed to do the regular check and let you pass, though with some suspicion. And finally, if you would choose number 4, the guard would instantly be on high alert. He would ask for a king's invitation, you would fail to provide it, and you would be chased out of town. Once again, you would be reported to the law, but this time you would be considered as a threat and you won't be able to enter the town. Now you might think that you could easily do the exact same interaction just by coding them in, with no need for AI to be implemented. And you would be right, at first. But the real beauty of this tech would be the dynamically changing perception of the player and his actions to the AI. As soon as the player started the game, the AI took the role of an observer that controls all the NPCs and their interactions in a somewhat third-person manner. The AI is constantly logging all the interactions that the player has with the NPCs and stores them like memory. So, for example, if the player goes to the same merchant to buy goods, the AI will check whether the player is on good terms with the NPC, check how often the player shops at this merchant, and would make a decision based on the log data. Then it would generate a text as follows: "You've been coming here every time you visit this town. I appreciate the business. How about I give you a discount?" And following that, the AI would just pick a random discount amount for the items that the player chooses to buy. This kind of karma/reputation system is what would really change the flow of the game as the player progresses. Since the AI is tracking all the player's movements and logging important information, you could have a scenario where the player is sent on a quest by a king to slay a beast that has been terrorizing the town. The player succeeds and returns to claim his reward, and judging by the importance of that quest, the AI might decide that the NPCs that are in the town will spread the word of this adventurer that helped them out. And if the NPCs travel to different towns, there is a chance that they will spread the word of our player and his achievements, which will passively increase his reputation in towns that he might have not visited yet. And for the last example, let's say that the player chooses to build his character like a rogue bounty hunter. Therefore, he never reveals himself, but he always gets the important jobs because the guild that he is a part of knows that he will get it done. All in all, this seems like a very enticing scenario for our player. You are the silent assassin, or the shadow hero of these lands. But in the AI's perspective, the only people that know you are the other guild members because you constantly interact with them, and they know what you have accomplished. So if you were to go to a merchant, a bar, or any kind of establishment, none of the NPCs would know who you are, or what you have done. And even if you try to explain it to them, they wouldn't believe you. Because people know of this hero, but since the player chooses not to reveal himself, no one knows what he looks like, so there is no way to receive the credit. because that was the player's choice to stay hidden. So the AI realizes that and dynamically adjusts the NPCs to fit the scenario that the player is building in this world. Considering these examples, the purpose of the AI would not be to substitute the NPCs or be a dialogue generator for them, but to be a dynamic narrative editor which reacts to the player's actions, which in turn would result in a more immersive and seemingly living world. With all that being said, I believe this is just the first and most obvious way for AI to be implemented into games. Though you could evolve this concept very far, where you are simulating every single NPC with their own separate lives completely isolated from the player. But at the moment, it feels like this would be too resource intensive for the amount of reward you would get from this feature, though I believe that this will come in due time. Continuing on, the next way I see AI being implemented is a difficult one to explain, and the simplest explanation I came up with is in the context of a roguelite. So please pay attention while I explain this. Like any other roguelite, you go from room to room defeating any enemy you come across. A seemingly common feature of roguelites is that every level has a shop where you can either buy health, keys, bombs, etc., etc., which is all well and good. This is what the players are conditioned to expect from these types of games. Though in this example, in every item shop there is some sort of a roulette/slot machine. Now you might think that this isn't something new. A lot of games have these machines that just give you random items. It's nothing special. But this machine is the AI in this example. This machine only provides items that enhances your combat abilities, be it an elemental ability, a small companion to help you in combat, or a new weapon. But this is nothing special. What is, however, is that this AI has only a few items in its catalog. At the start, you will get an item from the catalog, but the more you buy from this machine, the AI will run out of options on what items to give, and it cannot give you the same item again. So how does it solve this? It starts generating. With the items and abilities that it has in its catalog, all sorts of random combinations are generated. Now some might be completely unusable, and some might be too overpowered, but if you keep expanding this generation, even with the generated items, you can get all sorts of amalgamations of weapons and abilities. In this scenario, every time the AI generates, the new item is stored in the catalog so that if, let's say, you die, and as a roguelite, you have to start from the beginning again, these saved items and abilities have a chance to show up again in any playthrough. And you can continue this until there are so many that it would be impossible to get even a similar one. But I must admit, after some time, there wouldn't be a point to any of this. If the enemies are the same, including their weapons and abilities, it wouldn't be fun anymore. So you could have the same generated weapons you had from the previous run carry over to the enemies in the next one. Obviously, with some hard-coded limitations so that the player doesn't instantly die when they enter a new level, but this would legitimately bring more fresh replayability into the game. And of course, if at some point you would want to reset everything to start from the beginning, that would be just a simple option to select when you start a new game. So every item that was previously generated would be deleted, and you would only be left with the original catalog that the AI is provided with. Another take on this example could be that the AI is also observing the player as he goes through every level. It can dynamically determine if the player is struggling or breezing through. It could generate items that would make it easier or harder for the player to continue, but there would be scenarios that the player wouldn't want to get a new item. The player might just carry on. If that was to happen, the game levels would be changed, the enemies, their weapons, and the environment, so that the game's levels could incentivize the player to gamble for an item from the machine. With a combination of dynamically changing levels reacting to the player's performance, and the AI generating new items every time it is used, this could give the player a game that could surprise them at any moment. The player could be having a tough time, but the AI gives an item that has multiple abilities, which some help the player, but others give the player a disadvantage in the environment that he is in. So the player would have to switch up his strategy on the spot and think of a new way to approach the level, with the new abilities that he is given. This kind of AI could also be implemented as a dynamic skill tree in another way. It could generate skills based on your behavior in combat. Let's say that you play more defensively. It would give skills based on that criteria. Though a more interesting twist may be that the skills you receive are randomly generated, just based on the criteria of defense. For example, you could get a skill where you would be invulnerable when you sleep, a skill where your cooking grants you more stamina and increases your health regeneration, or a skill where you are unable to lose an argument with an NPC. In the context of defense, all of these are valid and all of them bring different kinds of benefits. Another one could be if the player mainly plays with daggers and some magic. The generated skills from this playstyle could be magically summoning daggers so the player never runs out of them when he throws them, a skill where the player can swap weapons with the enemy, but this would be slightly unfavorable for our player due to the fact that he mainly plays with daggers, so he won't know how to use other weapons. Or it could just be that he can magically infuse his daggers with flavors so he can transfer the taste to the food that he eats to reduce debuffs or grant small buffs. Last point I want to add is in the form of a world/biome generator. And just to make it easier to understand, let's think about it in the context of Minecraft. Let's say that you have a few pre-made biomes and all of the structure and criteria of those biomes are in a list of some sorts that the AI can reference. When you spawn in the first time, you will appear in a random pre-made biome. But as you traverse the world, the AI will start generating random biomes from the criteria of the pre-made ones. So you might have a mushroom jungle biome, where the mushroom trees are as tall and as dense as a jungle. A stony peak desert, where the desert sands reach hundreds of blocks high with a treacherous terrain everywhere you go. Or just a simple ice spike swamp, where the water barely flows through every ice spike that you come across. But it doesn't end there. The AI could take those same generated biomes, add them to the list of biomes, and make even more outlandishly wild places to visit on your adventure, so that the further you travel, you are never left with just the same set-in-stone biomes that you have seen hundreds of times. In turn, this could bring a new form of enjoyment for the players, seeing how far you can go in just one life through the interesting biomes, finding a new and unique looking place to build your base on, or just enjoy the fun combinations that the AI can come up with. This could even be done to the different dimensions, the Nether and the End. It could even be applied to the caves. Imagine having a biome that is just giant ravines stretching to bedrock, and giant caves in craters stretching as far as the eye can see. With all of the points laid out in front of you, what do you think? Think about it. Collect your thoughts, ponder for a few days, and come to a conclusion. And to those people that are going to argue that this AI shenanigans is stealing the jobs of developers, sorry to tell you this, but you couldn't be more wrong. It is a possibility, but in our lifetime, it's highly unlikely, especially since we are at the beginning of AI tech. One more thing I want to say is that this tech is not going to make the AI plug and play. It will take a lot of smart people to figure out how to do that. So developers at the moment will have to work in synergy with the AI. So I believe all the games that will be coming out with AI implementation will utilize both hard coding and AI. The tricky part will be making them work in unison. So cut the developers some slack. They are the ones making an experience that is worth our time. And that, in my eyes, is commendable. Lastly, some off-the-cuff stuff that I want to say. Oh god, well that was something. Never actually read a script before. It's the first time for everything. Hopefully you enjoyed that. Hopefully it wasn't too boring listening to my voice over and over again, but yes. The concept is very basic, because I am not a developer. I am just a dude who's excited about what this technology can actually bring to the table. And, you know, hype and everything overflows me, and I just get lost in the sauce, as you might say. But I can definitely tell I'm very excited to see where this can go and how will it actually improve the gaming experience and the stories that will be told from this implementation of this new tech. So with that all out of the way, thank you very much for watching. Hopefully you have a good evening, good afternoon, good night, good morning, wherever you are in the world, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.